I just don't think enough people are yapping about things that, in the most positive way, are designed to give you a little bit of an existential crisis. And so I thought that's what we'll do today. This video is on the back of one I posted on my Instagram where I was talking about string theory and 10 dimensions, and specifically how that relates to your mindset. Instagram, if you're not familiar, I post on there pretty much every day, but I only get really a 3-minute window, and I'm someone who likes to yap. I like to talk with my hands, and I wanted to go deeper on this topic. And so I was thinking about making this more kind of longer form series, that if there is a topic, I mean, to be honest, all my videos I could go deeper on. But I wanted specifically to go a little bit deeper on this one because I've got a lot of notes and I've got a lot of thoughts, and tell you how this can positively apply to your mindset, whilst also giving you just a little bit of a positive existential crisis. So the topic from my video, and one which I learned from a podcast, okay? Specifically, the podcast that prompted this for me was Neil deGrasse Tyson, whose podcast StarTalk, hands down my favorite. Like, I absolutely love it. If you want to know what I listen to at the gym, it's Neil deGrasse Tyson's StarTalk podcast. It's absolutely fantastic. There's longer videos, there's interviews. He just yaps in some of them, and they do kind of like off the cuff questions. It's just brilliant. There was an episode where they had, and I will find it and link it below. They had Greene on, and Brian, I've read one of his books. He's a professor of mathematics and physics at Columbia University. They started yapping about something I've not been able to get out of my mind, which was how the really frightening thing about quantum mechanics and string theory is not what the maths tells you when you put something in, it's what the maths generates from within itself. And so let's spend the next 15 minutes or so just yapping about what that really means. And specifically for me, my content, I want to talk about how it relates to your mindset. Because I think this is actually one of the most important things that's been said about the nature of reality in a really long time. And to be honest, it has not much to do with physics. I'll leave that in their domain. Very, very smart men. And what I want to talk mainly about in this video is how it's everything to do with why you are living the life you are currently living. So stay with me. I'm grateful to have you here, and let's look in. So starting at the beginning, string theory. You've probably heard of it, and you probably have a vague sense that it's something to do with the universe being made of tiny strings rather than particles. And you probably, if that, have an equally vague sense that it is complex as heck and not something that applies to your life in any meaningful way. My job here today is challenge that second assumption. But firstly, I do want to go over roughly the science so you have a concept of what it actually is. For most of the 20th century, physics had a pretty significant problem. So there's two theories that both worked extraordinarily well, both in their but in their own domains. Okay, so you have general relativity. That's Einstein's baby. Okay, that's Einstein's framework description of the very, very large. So what I mean by that: gravity, curvature of space-time, movement of planets and galaxies, and expansion of the universe itself. Okay, big ass stuff. On the flip side of that, we have quantum mechanics. So describing the very, very small, and this is the one I like to spin out on. If I like to treat myself to a little existential crisis before bed, it'll be reading up about quantum mechanics. Very, very, very small particles, energy, behavior of atoms, forces that operate at the subatomic level. Both theories were, and very much still are, among the most precisely verified frameworks in the history of human knowledge. Okay, great. They're completely incompatible with each other because the maths of general relativity breaks down at the quantum scale, and equally the mathematics of the quantum mechanics breaks down at the cosmological scale. Okay, so like going up into the large, which means two perfect descriptions of reality that could not exist in the same room. String theory was the attempt to fix that. So the proposal was elegant in the way that like the best ideas always are. What if the fundamental building blocks of the universe were not point-like structures, so like infinitely small dots with no internal structure, but one-dimensional string? tiny, and like, hear me when I say this, like tiny, like 100 billion times smaller than a proton, which a proton in itself is so like freaking tiny. It's like the mind, like no mind can comprehend. Tiny, vibrating like the strings of an instrument. So like different vibrations producing different particles. The electron is just a string vibrating one way. The quark is a string vibrating another. The entire zoo of subatomic particles, the photons, the gluons, the bosons, all of them just different modes of vibration of the same fundamental string. One object, infinite variety, based entirely on how it moves. And when physicists started working through the mathematics of this framework, something happened that no one expected. The maths started producing outputs that no one put in. Okay, no one asked for this. And here's the one that stopped everyone in their tracks. For the mathematics of string theory to be internally consistent, for the equations to hold without producing any contradictions, the universe cannot be four-dimensional. So we experience 4 dimensions, so 3 of space, which is length, width, depth, 1 of time. That is our reality. That is what we can observe, we can measure, we can navigate. But the string theory equations, when you let them run, produce a different answer. So like for the mathematics to work, for string theory to be a consistent framework, the universe must have 10 dimensions. Okay, so, and I'm not saying like not 4, not 6, and not like approximately 10. 6 additional spatial dimensions curled up at a scale so small we cannot directly observe them, but mathematically present. So mathematically necessary, mathematically proven to exist by the internal logic of the framework. And this was the thing that Greene emphasized, and I want you to sit with as well. Nobody decided the universe had 10 dimensions. The physicists did not put in 10. They weren't like typing on the keyboard like 10 and got 10 back. They put in the equations, they ran the mathematics, and the mathematics produced 10 as an output. The theory selected its own dimensionality from the inside without being asked, okay? Michio Kaku, who's one of the founders of string field theory, described this perhaps as the most startling prediction in all of physics. So a theory of space-time that selects out its own dimensionality. In all of physics, nowhere have we seen a prediction this batshit. Okay, because in every other theory we've ever built, you decide how many dimensions there are and you build the framework around that assumption. String theory was like, no, I'm good, I will decide for myself. The mathematics was more than a tool for describing reality, it was producing reality. Okay, so, or at a minimum, it was producing outputs that about reality that exceeded anything that humans running it had ever intended to put in. Okay. So let's yap about how scary this is, but in a positive way, okay? So the thing that Neil deGrasse Tyson and Greene were circling when they talked about why this was frightening about string theory, it's not actually the 10 dimensions, it's the implication of 10 dimensions. So reality is significantly larger than what we put into our understanding of it. So the universe contains dimensions, so entire additional axes of existence that we do not design, did not choose, cannot directly perceive, and would never have found if the mathematics had not generated them from within itself. Which means our experience of reality, so what we can observe and touch and measure, is a fraction of what's actually there. So we're living in 4 dimensions of a 10-dimensional reality. The other 6 are present, influencing everything, completely out with our direct perception. Okay, so now I want to bring this somewhere because you're like, Joanne, this is fantastic, very interesting. I don't know how this applies to me. and bear with me because we're going to get there. I did not bring you in this video to give you, to tell you about string theory, like to give you a physics lesson. I told you about string theory because I think it's the most accurate description I've ever found of something that's happening inside you, inside me, inside all of us right now. It's probably been happening your entire life without your knowledge, without your permission, and in ways that are shaping everything you experience, including the parts of your life you most want to change, okay? Your nervous system is running string theory. So not metaphorically, not as like a loose analogy, structurally. And here's what I mean by that. Your brain processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second. If you have my course, The Science of Becoming, I went deep on this. You will know all about that. I'll pop the link below if you haven't already checked it out. 11 million bits of information per second, okay? It's a lot. It's a lot. And, you know, if you're like me and a mum and you're dealing with mental load, it's a lot, okay? Your conscious mind accesses approximately 40. So we had 11 million bits. We're consciously accessing about 40, okay? Let me do the maths on that. The other 10,999,960 bits are being processed below the threshold of your awareness. So they're being interpreted, they're being filtered, being assigned meaning, generating conclusions about who you are, what is safe, what is possible for you, what you deserve, what always happens to people like you. These conclusions are not things you consciously decided. You did not you didn't sit down one day with a pen and paper and choose to believe that you're someone that things don't work out for, or that money is always followed by loss. It just escapes you. If it comes in, it's going right back out again. Your car's going to start making that funny noise. Relationships require you to make yourself smaller. The higher you climb, the harder you fall, the further you fall. These were outputs generated by your nervous system from within itself, from the experiences it processed, the meanings it assigned, the patterns it detected and built into a model of how reality really works. Just like the 10 dimensions, nobody put them in, they came out, okay? And just like the 10 dimensions, they're shaping everything, whether you can perceive them or not, whether you choose them or not. I want you to think about the last time you self-sabotage. So maybe a moment where you got close to something. So it could be like a relationship, a job opportunity, a promotion, a version of yourself that you wanted to become, and then you retreated and pulled back, or you just let the whole thing blow up. Or convinced yourself it wasn't what you wanted after all. That's always a classic one. From the outside, that looks like a choice. From the inside, it probably felt like a choice, but it wasn't a choice. It was a dimension you couldn't see. An output your nervous system generated from a belief you never consciously agreed to hold. And the thing with the mind as well, it was executed with complete efficiency while your conscious mind was busy making plans. You were operating in 4 dimensions, your nervous system was operating in 10, and the 6 you couldn't see were running everything, okay? This is the part I think is the most important thing of all I will yap on today, and it's the thing that almost nobody in the mindset space, woo-woo space, whatever you want to call it, I don't think enough people say honestly. Understanding this does not fix it. Okay, so knowing that your nervous system is generating outputs you didn't choose, knowing it intellectually, being able to articulate it, feeling the resonance of it as you may be listening to this, does not change the outputs, because the understanding happens in 4 dimensions and the outputs are being generated in 10. Okay, so you can understand your limiting belief completely. You can maybe even tie it back to its source. Name it, examine it, have genuine moments of clarity about where they came from, why they formed, and your nervous system will continue generating them, because understanding is a conscious process and the outputs, I'm going to say this one into the microphone, the outputs are subconscious. The 6 dimensions you cannot directly perceive do not update because the 4 dimensions you perceive finally understood something. Okay? This is a great example of why Alan Turing's halting problem applies here. So he proved in 1936 that no system can evaluate its own infinite loops from within itself. So you cannot break the loop using the mind that's running it. The input has to come from outside. I did an Instagram post on Le Chatelier's principle. When you try to change a system in equilibrium, the system will reorganize itself to resist the change. Your nervous system is going to put them up to fight the update. Not because you're broken, not that there's anything wrong with you or the way your mind works, but because that is what systems do. And this is why also I did an Instagram post on this. Eigenvalue applies here. Your nervous system has a set point. So it's a frequency it returns to regardless of what you layer on top. So you can have a breakthrough or like a moment of this profound insight, a conversation that maybe shifts something, and the set point pulls you back every time until the underlying matrix changes. So not the surface, the matrix, okay? So what does change the outputs? What is the external input that breaks the loop? What actually updates the 6 dimensions you cannot directly perceive, okay? I'm going to tell you now, empty your cart of those self-help books, okay? It is not more information. It is not more information. It is not better understanding. Again, if I didn't say this enough, it's not another book or even a podcast or moment of clarity. It is working directly with the system that is generating the outputs, not the conscious mind, the nervous system, okay? The language it speaks, because I think this is something like really fundamentally misunderstood, and I think affirmations have a lot to answer for with this. The nervous system it speaks. The nervous system doesn't speak in words, so affirmations are great. But if you turn an affirmation into an incantation, which means you're saying the words, but you're adding in like a full body experience with it. So like if you're like, I am abundant, if you're feeling in your body the sense of abundant, like, or making your body act out the sense of abundance that for you personally you would feel if you're feeling abundant, that's so much more effective than an affirmation, because affirmations are words and the nervous system does not speak in words. It doesn't speak in any known language of spoken word on the planet, okay? So the nervous system, again, does not speak in words. The patterns it has been running since before you could evaluate them. So the meanings it assigned to your experiences, you never consciously agreed to make mean what they mean. So the identity conclusions it generated from a childhood that is over, but a nervous system that's still responding as though it is not. That is the work. So not thinking differently, rewiring differently at the level where the outputs actually live in the 6 dimensions. The ones you cannot directly perceive, but can absolutely work with if you know how, okay? String theory changed physics not because it gave physicists a new way to think about the universe. It changed physics because it revealed that the universe was generating something, 10 dimensions of space-time, that no one had put in, and the only way to understand reality fully was to work with the outputs the system was already producing. So not to pretend the 6 hidden dimensions weren't there, not to operate as though 4 dimensions was the whole picture, but to develop the tools to work with what the system was already generating. And again, your nervous system is doing the same thing. It has been generating outputs, so beliefs, patterns, identity conclusions, dimensions of your experience you can't directly perceive since the day you were born. And the only way to change your outer reality is to work with the system that is producing it. So not at the level of conscious thought, at the level of the outputs themselves. Again, this is what my course, The Science of Becoming, is built to do. So it's not a course about thinking positively, and it's equally not a course about manifesting in a way that word probably usually makes you feel. It is a complete framework for understanding what your nervous system is generating and how to work with it directly. So the neuroscience of why you think the way you do, the NLP tools that work at the level of the outputs themselves, and the universal laws that govern how the system operates. The meaning work as well. So going back to the experience that built the model and consciously updating what they mean. And most importantly, the somatic practice, because again, the 6 dimensions do not update because the conscious mind, they update through the body, because again, the nervous system doesn't speak in words. All of this is designed to do one thing, and that is to take you from understanding your reality to actually changing it. The link is below in the description. I will see you inside. Otherwise, I'm so grateful to have you here on this video. I really hope this was helpful. I'm excited to bring you more of these. I'm going to be doing more deep dives on my short form Instagram content, and I think it's going to be super helpful for you.